Hey, I'm Rico with Hardwood Garage. I've been doing woodwork since I was a kid, and at this episode, we're gonna do a coffee table for a client in black walnut, and it's gonna be finished with water-based flat finish. I made these two low welded tables for this purpose, and then I used aluminum tubing that I had in the shop, and you can see there's one on each side of the table, and then I have like a sliding piece on top. It's almost like a manual CNC machine. Slow, but it works good. And if the slab is thicker, I just put one more piece of aluminum underneath. And this is made of material that I had in the shop. And I put up some tarp on the whole side of the shop, and then I have a fan on each side just to blow the worst of the dust out. It's difficult to set up a vacuum cleaner to a router that just hang like this in the air.
I'm sure you guys see that I'm going really slow, but that's comes out much nicer cutting edge, and it's easier when you're going to sand it. And you guys see that here it's a little bit lower, and I don't want to take off too much material in the middle, so this area here, it's only like here, I'm going to flatten that out with sandpaper. You see streaks here, that's all going to be even out when we sand this. We just sand the whole thing down when I'm done with the router.
This is a piece of metal. You find that all the time in black walnut. It could be a nail, it could be ammunition, or you never know. But it's not good to run the router bit through it. And here you see it's a messy, a lot of dust.
This is fairly smooth, so I'm going to start with hardwood paper. Quite often we have termites, and here it's a lot of it, but I just scrape the hole enough so I can fit some epoxy in there.
The termites are usually only close to the edge because the wood is softer, and it's very seldom you see termites in the middle of a black walnut. But it's no problem, we just get rid of that dust and put a little epoxy in there.
And for those who likes to see how this is going to look when it's finished, we just put a little water on here. And look at that, black walnut's amazing.
Here we're on the other side, and we still don't know what side to use. And here's another nail or something metal. We have to get it out. It looks like a nail. A little more silicone. And when we shaved off and sanded both sides, the client will come to the shop and decide what side should be the showing surface side. Yeah, this looks much better than the other sides. This is the top. And this way you see more of the live edge than on the other side. I use the router. I start usually with a 80 and then 100, 120, 180, and sometimes finish with 220. And when I put the clear coat on, I usually sand in between each coat with a 220. Here I'm putting some tape on the back side of that crack, so when we fill it with epoxy, it's not just gonna disappear. And on the top, we just put some cloth in the hole to fill it, so I use less epoxy, and it's gonna take maybe 3 times before it's all flush because it's sinking in.
This client loves purple, so and now I'm using West System, which is expensive epoxy. I have other ones too, but for small repair, this is easier. Or small fillings. Report. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look at that purple pearl.
And here we just fill the crack with some epoxy, and it's gonna take probably 3 times before it's all full. And then we sand it, and it comes out beautiful. It looks a little messy, but it's not. It's okay. We just sand off whatever it's on the where it's not supposed to be. Epoxy takes overnight to dry most of the time. The thick one takes even longer, but this is just a small crack. Yeah, we come back the next day, you can see it's like it's all was sinking in. So I think we did this 3 times before it was all filled. That's pretty normal. And if you think my hands are dirty, woodwork is not the only thing I'm doing. I also work on some classic cars, so I get grease and dirty oil on me all the time. But woodworking is my passion. I guess I need to wash my hands more carefully next time. Look at those grease monkey hands. Oh, now it's time to sand. That kind of sandpaper, it's like a net. And why it's better on epoxy, it gets a little gooey when you sand and it fills up a normal sandpaper. This is a little easier to clean. You just spray high pressure air. And if there's some really small pinholes, it's easy to come back later and fix it. And here we're going to cut a straight edge. The client wants a straight edge on one side and then rounded on the other side. This is a big coffee table. And when we have thick walnut, it's better to cut like 2 or 3 times. You cut just 1 inch at a time.
The client asked to have a straight edge on that side and rounded on this side, so it does actually look like we have a live edge here. So we're just gonna something like this and this, and then we grind this down, but we're gonna cut it with a sawzall first. I'm going to try a few different grinding discs. I used the sandpaper and this one before. I never used this one, but I think this takes the rough stuff off, and then we just follow and make it look like a natural live edge.
That metal rasp turned out to be a little too rough, and I had to come back and sand more than I normally do, but it worked out okay. Sandpaper and that nylon thing works best. And here we're just sanding, trying to look like a natural live edge. That's what the client wants. And here I just use a coarse sandpaper on the grinder, and it works really good. Since it's a soft sandpaper, it follows the wood better than a hard disc. And here you see a pretty big crack. I ended up filling that with epoxy and then clamp it, so I glued it together. And here it's just some termite holes that we just filled with epoxy, trying to get it the same color as the wood. And here we put clear West System Epoxy. The termite can't get in there again, and it's going to be pretty close to the same color as the wood. And here we just sand and sand. You can never sand too much on a piece of wood. A lot of time it's done with sanding in the wood shop. Here we're using a penetrating epoxy, and it's like it makes a seal the wood. It also brings out the texture and the color in the wood, and it makes a big difference in my opinion. And I use that if I use a water-based finish, or if I'm going to use an oil-based finish, I still use it. And if the table ever going to be outside, it's not going to be penetrated by water. And of course, when we do something on wood, we always do the same thing on both sides. So here we just turn the table over and do the same thing on the other side, so the humidity can't get in there. Yeah, here's kind of the color it's gonna have when it's finished. And I let this penetrating epoxy sit for at least 24 hours, so it's not tacky. And then I sand it with a 220, and then we just put the coat on. And after the penetrating epoxy, what we do put on, in this case, it's a sanding sealer. And we brush that on too. It's probably better to spray it on, but we brush it on with a foam brush. Maybe 4 or 5 times, and we sand with a 220 between each coat. Look at that color. And this is a 220 sanding, and I do that in between each coat to flatten it out and getting all the imperfection out. And that's the sanding sealer, that it's builds up. As I said, it would probably be better to spray it, but it gets too much overspray in the shop, so this is the way we do it. Of course, we do spray the last couple coats. And when using a spray gun, it's important to have your mask on. And here you're gonna see me spraying on the final finish, which is a matte finish. And it's the best result is, of course, is to spray that. And I spray it twice, and I sand in between, but with the 400 paper, just to get the imperfection and little dust off. And it comes out really nice. And here's the final results with a metal base that we made in-house as well.